The dollar is facing a revolt. The world knows it as the king of currencies, but the dominance of the dollar is now under threat. More and more countries are looking for alternatives, and China's yuan is emerging as a clear challenger.
As de-dollarization of the international economy is gaining momentum. This is spearheaded by powerful countries like China and Russia. At the recent state visits by Chinese President Xi Jinping in Russia, President Vladimir Putin indicated that they are in favor of using Chinese currency for trade in other parts of the world like Africa, Asia, and Latin America.
It has come down, partly because of the introduction of the euro. The euro has become held to a greater extent over the years.
Renminbi started playing a role as a reserve currency just a few years ago, and it accounts for a relatively modest share, less than 3% of global foreign exchange reserves, but it's been chipping away very modestly at the dollar's role. Plus, there are other reserve currencies, including the Japanese yen, the British pound sterling, but even some of the smaller reserve currencies, such as the Canadian dollar and the Australian dollar, they have all gained marginally in terms of their shares.
This one is about alliances, about countries joining hands to challenge the US dollar. At the forefront of this is BRICS, that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa.
I am sure you have already heard buzzwords like US dollar crash, end of dollar world dominance, doomsday is coming, and whatnot. All of these predictions are pointing towards one thing, that is, world's reserve currency is about to lose its safe haven status and new world order is being formed. Before we dive deep into the current situation, let's understand about history of dollar, how it has made its reserve currency status. The dollar status as the global reserve currency was cemented in the aftermath of World War II by the 1944 Bretton Woods Conference, in which 44 countries agreed to the creation of the IMF and the World Bank. To service the IMF, US dollar and gold was chosen as the safe asset, and system of exchange rates was created wherein each country pegged the world value of its currency to the dollar, which itself was convertible to gold at the rate of $35 per ounce. Though by the 1960s, the United States did not have enough gold to cover the dollars in circulation outside the United States, leading to fears of a run that could wipe out US gold reserves. Finally, in 1971, President Richard Nixon suspended the dollar's convertibility to gold, marking the beginning of the end of the Bretton Woods exchange rate system.
The strength of a nation's currency is based on the strength of that nation's economy. And the American economy is by far the strongest in the world. Accordingly, I have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to take the action necessary to defend the dollar against the speculators.
On February 12, 1973, with exchange markets in Europe and Japan closed, the United States devalued the dollar by $42 an ounce. When markets reopened, speculation against the dollar became rampant. Within a month, nearly all major currencies were floating against the dollar. The Bretton Woods system was finished, and world continued to use dollar as a reference currency. Since dollar is a reference rate, all the excess foreign reserves of the world are stored in dollar currency in the form of US Treasury. This means that all the world debt is owned in US dollars. In 1979, the United States and Saudi Arabia negotiated the United States-Saudi Arabian Joint Commission on Economic Cooperation. They agreed to use US dollars for oil contracts. The US dollars would be recycled back to America through contracts with US companies. These companies improve Saudi infrastructure through technology faster. Today, oil transporters prefer the US dollar because it is preeminent global currency for global investments. That makes it the most convenient store of value for accumulated oil revenue, which needs to earn a rate of return to be useful. SWIFT is another way on which indirectly US exerts influence and can kick off the countries under the name of sanctions, with recent example of removing Russia from delinking its financial institutions from SWIFT system.
First, we commit to ensuring that a certain number of Russian banks are removed from SWIFT. This will ensure that these banks are disconnected from the international financial system and harm their ability to operate globally. SWIFT is the world's dominant global interbank payment system. Cutting banks off will stop them from conducting most of their financial transactions worldwide.
So basically, 3 reasons can cause US dominance. First, dollar is the trusted currency of world for trade as it has consistent unit value across. Second, all loans and reserves are dominated on USD treasury bills. And third, dollar currency used for majority of trading and buying of oil through petrodollars. Though do remember, the US dollar is not the only reserve currency in the world. There are numerous other currencies that are also considered to be reserves, such as the euro, Japanese yen, British pound, and Chinese yuan. But US dollar is more frequently used. So why are countries moving away of their dependence on the US dollar as the world reserve currency? International Monetary Fund recently announced that it would no longer use its US dollar as its primary benchmark for assessing countries' economic conditions. The announcement made by the IMF coincides with the period that many countries are witnessing their economies deteriorating and have been struggling to maintain their financial stability, including US. So now, let's see what events are pointing us towards de-dollarization. Increasing account deficit. Running high deficit causing increased inflation, and even with Fed's continuous increase in interest rate, inflation is still not controlled. To counter deficit, US has been borrowing global savings in the form of debt. And since loans are in dollars, US can print more dollars to pay back these loans while further weakening the dollar currency. This mounts to global concern on stability of dollar. For Russia, after its war on Ukraine, sanction avoidance has been the major motive for de-dollarization. Russia has agreed to receive fuel payments in rubles from number of countries and is also allowing India to use the rupee in trade settlements. Russia has also been working on alternative payment systems with other members of BRICS designed to reduce the prevalence of the US dollar in transactions, including a new global reserve currency and a single payment system. China is also giving loans in yuan and may ask to pay their current outstanding dollar loans in yuan currency. China is also in discussion with Saudi to buy oil through petro-yuan currency. Last nail in the coffin could be bilateral currency swap agreement. It's a swap agreement of two currencies between some predefined contract terms. So let's say Indonesia wants to buy BrahMos missiles from India, then Indonesian buyer will buy INR from Indonesia Bank and pay to Indian Bank. Once missiles are delivered, Indian Bank will pay INR to DRDO and completing the transaction without using dollar currency. China, India, Russia, and many other countries have already signed many currency swap agreements. Now let's see what will be the challenges for de-dollarization. Limited convertibility of local currencies. Due to lack of trust in currencies such as yuan or ruble and no stable peg for most of the local currencies. Financial disturbance in dollar creates financial instability to other currency as most of the forex is stored in dollar. De-dollarization could result in increased volatility in currency exchange rates, particularly during the initial phases of transition. So, de-dollarization is a possibility, but does it make it reality is something that we will have to wait and see. Thank you for watching the video. To watch more such videos, please like, share, comment and subscribe to our YouTube channel.